federal infrastructure plan in the US has been making headlines, as it promises to allocate over $1 trillion to upgrade and repair infrastructure nationwide. However, criticisms have already emerged, suggesting that these efforts won't sufficiently address the nation's failing infrastructure. Similar challenges persist in smaller projects, which frequently experience delays and significant cost overruns. This is regrettable because investing in infrastructure can be one of the most beneficial decisions a government can make. In the short term, it serves as a stimulus, providing employment opportunities for laborers, engineers, city planners, and even environmental consultants. Just like a stimulus check, infrastructure spending directly injects money into people's pockets, reducing unemployment. Unlike a stimulus check, however, the funds are used to construct assets that continue to provide value to the economy long after regular stimulus checks have been forgotten. Historical projects like the Hoover Dam were initiated to stimulate employment during the Great Recession and continue to benefit the economy to this day, offering a reservoir and electricity supply. Infrastructure spending is not only advantageous but also politically acceptable. Workers' paychecks on such projects are not seen as handouts, and modern infrastructure often contributes to clean energy generation and reduced commute times. Infrastructure spending is undeniably beneficial, which is why people become frustrated when projects fail to materialize or become entangled in bureaucratic red tape and excessive consultation. When comparing the progress in China, where infrastructure projects appear to be successful, with the deteriorating state of American bridges and roads, it is clear that China has achieved engineering feats once deemed unimaginable. China managed to construct an entire hospital in a mere 10 days, while the city of San Francisco took a decade to approve a new bus route. California has spent 2 decades planning a rail network, whereas China spent the same amount of time building the world's largest one. These examples, including my personal experience in Sydney, where trams were built at a cost of over $3 billion and took more than 4 years, highlight the allure of China's efficient infrastructure development. However, China's achievements are not without their consequences. Although China's high-speed rail network is undeniably impressive, it poses a potential problem for the Chinese economy, overshadowing even the Evergrande crisis. So, how did China manage to construct such an extensive high-speed railway network in such a short span of time? What motivated them to undertake such a colossal endeavor? And, ultimately, what was the actual cost of this massive undertaking? China, with its vast population, recognized the necessity of a comprehensive rail network, considering car ownership a luxury. A reliable rail network was essential to provide an affordable and efficient means of transportation for the country's citizens. Initially, this need was largely overlooked because most Chinese workers lived and worked in their birth cities, and long-distance travel was limited. However, the early 2000s brought significant changes. China's plan to open up to the world gained momentum, leading to an influx of young workers from small towns to large cities, supporting the nation's booming industrial sector. These workers still desired a means of returning to their families, but air travel and private cars were financially inaccessible for most. Prior to the introduction of high-speed rail, many workers relied on long bus journeys that could take days or even weeks to cover relatively short distances. By 2008, the Chinese government had already initiated some high-speed rail projects, but the global financial crisis expedited these efforts. China was not immune to the repercussions of the crisis, as its trade dependence was even higher then than it is today, and trade intensity declined sharply. In simple terms, the decline in trade intensity meant a reduction in both imports and exports, which was detrimental to China given its heavy reliance on global trade. To counteract this financial blow, fiscal stimulus was required. However, China was cautious about indiscriminately distributing funds due to uncertainty surrounding the crisis's duration. Instead, their approach was to employ individuals who may have lost their jobs in export manufacturing and engage them in the construction of high-speed rail. In the 1930s, Keynes half-jokingly suggested that burying banknotes in the ground would be an effective form of stimulus, as the efforts to dig up the money would contribute positively to unemployment statistics. However, it is preferable to derive tangible benefits from stimulus spending rather than simply creating well-dug fields. The development of high-speed rail successfully achieved this objective, providing employment for millions of people. The Beijing to Shanghai track alone employed over 100,000 workers on site, not to mention the additional workforce involved in manufacturing steel and cement, delivering materials, and providing goods and services to support the construction. It was largely due to the progress made in high-speed rail that China managed to avoid recession. Sounds brilliant, right? Mission accomplished. China avoided recession and gained a high-speed rail network that enhanced mobility and improved living standards and industrial capacity. However, this is where the problems began. The rail program has been plagued by corruption from the start, which is not uncommon in government projects, especially in China. Given the scale and visibility of this project, corruption scandals were more extensive and daring. This presented a challenge for the government, as it undermined their ability to boast about the greatness of the project without being overshadowed by reports of officials accepting bribes. In 2011, the confidence of the public in China's high-speed rail infrastructure was further shaken when two high-speed trains collided on an elevated section of track, revealing a series of management failures and overloading of the route. These incidents revived concerns about corruption and nepotism within the bloated Ministry of Railways. To address these issues, the government decided to partially privatize the railways by selling them to the state-owned corporation China Railway. The following year, the two companies responsible for manufacturing railcars, CSR and CNR, merged to form the CRRC. These massive state-owned corporations embarked on an even larger construction boom. As separate entities from the government, they had more control over raising funds and borrowed nearly $1 trillion to bring Chinese railways to their present state. This financing came from a combination of state-owned banks, publicly issued bonds, and investments from local governments. However, soon after the completion of the latest construction phase, problems arose. By that time, the highly profitable lines connecting major population centers had already been established, leaving the newly laid line serving city centers that did not generate the same demand or ticket sales revenue. Nevertheless, the government pushed forward with these projects to ensure accessibility to and from smaller tier cities, even if they were not highly profitable. These decisions were influenced by various political motivations. Apart from misguided political incentives, other issues emerged as well. China's high-speed rail network became a matter of national pride, causing the developers to overlook potential alternative solutions for transportation across the country. When you specialize in hammers, every problem appears to be a nail. Similarly, when you run China Railway, every problem seems solvable with a high-speed train, even though that may not always be the most suitable solution. There are instances where conventional rail, for example, could be a more cost-effective alternative. Regular rail systems are less expensive to construct and operate, resulting in lower ticket prices, which is crucial for budget-conscious workers who do not enjoy Western levels of wealth. Additionally, regular rail offers the advantage of being able to transport cargo, which is of significant importance for a country heavily reliant on heavy industry like China. Initially, China's high-speed rail network seemed to be profitable, with losses from unprofitable routes compensated by highly profitable ones. The state-owned corporation even managed to generate some profit after repaying its substantial debt. However, this delicate balance was disrupted in 2015 when the interest payments on the accumulated debts began surpassing the operating profits of the rail lines. Several factors have contributed to exacerbating this situation. The aging rail lines require increasingly frequent maintenance, but raising ticket prices is not a viable option as it would drive passengers to choose air travel or buses instead. Furthermore, the COVID-19 pandemic severely reduced the demand for rail tickets, resulting in almost every line becoming unprofitable. Consequently, China now faces the challenge of managing a state-owned enterprise burdened with $850 billion in debt that it cannot repay. Ironically, this predicament arises at a time when a fiscal stimulus, similar to the original high-speed rail development program implemented in 2008, would be necessary once again. However, it is evident that such a stimulus is unlikely to occur, as the government has already halted the construction of additional high-speed rail projects. Nevertheless, this does not absolve them of the problems posed by the existing network. If the government were to sell off the network to repay the loans, profit-driven companies would only be interested in acquiring the highly profitable routes between major cities. Consequently, the government would be left responsible for maintaining the unprofitable routes using taxpayer funds, resulting in a significant ongoing expense. Alternatively, they could opt to shut down the railways entirely, but this would leave hundreds of thousands of workers unemployed and undermine one of China's greatest symbols of economic success over the past 2 decades. The final option is a bailout and the reacquisition of the railway by the government. Although China Railway is a state-owned company, it possesses a degree of autonomy not typically granted to a government ministry. None of these options are particularly appealing, especially considering the concurrent challenges China faces, including a potential housing market crash, an energy crisis, and the ongoing impacts of the pandemic. I hope you found this video enjoyable, and if you did, please consider liking and subscribing to Trending Updates.